Master Luke, sir, it's so good to see you fully functional again.
Thanks, Luke.
Are to express this as relief also.
How you feeling, kid?
Don't look so bad to me. In fact, he looks strong enough to pull the ears off a gun dart.
Thanks to you.
That's two you owe me, Junior. Well, your worship, looks like you managed to keep me around for a little while longer.
I had nothing to do with it.
General Rykin thinks it's dangerous for any ships to leave the system until we've activated the energy field.
That's a good story.
I think you just can't bear to let a gorgeous guy like me out of your sight.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Star Wars Delusions of Granular, the weekly podcast where we get granular with a different Star Wars topic every week. I'm your host, Ron, and without me this week is my co-host, JP, who is off with his wife, having a child. He's going to be gone for a little bit, and we're going to continue on without him. So look forward to more episodes twice a week, and when JP comes back, we will get him on the show as soon as possible. So, like I said, we are Star Wars Delusions of Granular. You can find all of our podcasts at delusionsofgranular.com. That's GRANULAR.com. All of our past episodes are there, as well as news stories that we're posting daily. And we're going to start posting some reviews of the latest Star Wars novels and comics that are coming out, so look for that soon. You can always subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher, and if you're there, please leave us a review. You can always find us on Facebook at facebook.com/SWDOG, or follow us on Twitter at SWDog77. And if you would like to contribute to the show, you can leave us a call at 651-337-9364. That's 651-33-SWDOG. And as always, if you want to write to the show, email us at swdog77@gmail.com. And most importantly, if you know of people that like Star Wars and listen to podcasts, recommend us to your friends. That's the best way to get new listeners to the show, is tell someone you heard of us and you like the show, so recommend us to someone else that you think may like the show as well. Alright, so with that being said, we had a pretty exciting weekend over last weekend, and I thought we'd talk about that tonight. San Diego Comic-Con just happened, and as we all suspected, Lucasfilm was going to have a huge presence there, and they were going to give us something new. We didn't know what. They said that it was probably not going to be a trailer, so we didn't have that to look forward to, but we didn't know what to expect. So what I did was, as soon as I found out what time Lucasfilm was going on at Hall H, I sat down at the computer and started following the live tweets and the live people that were covering it and trying to follow along with what was going on. And we got about an hour of really, really cool stuff. I don't know anybody who is a Star Wars fan who couldn't have been excited about what we got from JJ and Kathleen Kennedy. So I thought I'd just kind of run through that, share my thoughts about it this episode, and feel free to write in later and share your thoughts about it. So, started out, we had Chris Hardwick from The Nerdist. He was our moderator, and typically I'm not a big Chris Hardwick fan, but he was a pretty decent moderator, I have to say. He did a pretty good job. He seemed humble. I kind of find him a little bit obnoxious at times, a little bit trying too hard to be a nerd, but he seemed pretty humble about it. He immediately brings on Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and first time to a Comic-Con, Lawrence Kasdan, who had written the original Empire Strikes Back. He also is currently writing or has written The Force Awakens. So, this is a great person to have there. Really brings it home that this is they're trying to do things right. And that was really a theme of this whole happening at Hall H, is they're really kind of hammering it home that this is something that is, they're taking the right steps to make this a movie done right. There's a lot of care. There's a lot of special attention to detail. Practical is the word that they're using to describe everything that's happening in this movie, as far as filming goes. And to really hammer it home, just like they brought out BB-8 at Star Wars Celebration, they brought out another practical effect that we are somewhat familiar with, a character called Baba Joe. And you might remember this character from the charity video that JJ did early on when he was on the set at what turns out to be Jakku. We saw a creature in the background kind of carrying a load of creatures or some kind of basket on his back. This creature, they bring him out on stage, and it was ridiculously funny because it's some kind of remote controlled character, even though it looks like a creature and not a robot. And JJ and Kathleen Kennedy seemed to be very worried that this thing was going to fall off the stage. So I don't know how much it impressed the fans. It seemed to be more of a, oh my god, this thing's going to fall apart at any minute. But it was a practical effect. It wasn't a person in a costume. They said that it was like 5 people controlling it remotely. So it was just nice to see that. Kind of a throwback to what they did with BB-8. And they chatted a little bit. They had fans in the audience asking questions. The first one was sort of weird. It was a cosplay person dressed as Batman who wouldn't break out of character. He stayed in Batman and used his Christian Bale Batman voice to ask a question, which was a little awkward, but, that's what San Diego Comic-Con's all about, is the fans being slightly weird. Anyway, the fans were asking questions, and JJ had a couple really great quotes. Somebody asked him what the takeaway he's going to have from Star Wars when he goes to other films after he's done with Star Wars, and they kept referring to the other films as well as Star Wars as an IP, which is a very legal term for these franchises and whatnot. And JJ made a point of saying, look, I don't think of it, Star Wars, as an IP. We all think of it as a story that we're trying to craft, and we're trying to make it the best story possible. And Kathleen Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan both agreed with him. So, again, driving it home that Star Wars is in good hands, and they're doing their best to bring us a well-crafted story that feels like a real universe with real characters and real sets and real everything. So, from there, they brought out what we assume, because we really still don't know a lot about this movie other than what we've seen in the trailers. But they brought out what we're assuming, 3 main characters: Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac. And even though we've seen them on stage before, they're still very, very charming. John Boyega, pretty funny, talking about how hard it is for him as a Star Wars fan to actually enjoy the Comic-Con, because he has to walk around in costume, and he has a hard time actually looking for the toys that he wants to collect. So pretty funny there. Oscar Isaac also is pretty darn funny. He said that when he talked to Harrison Ford actually thought that Oscar Isaac was wearing a wig for filming. That no, is actually Oscar Isaac's real hair. Oscar Isaac also did make an interesting point. He said that the characters that these three are playing, they were basically kids for the events in the original trilogy. So in a way, those characters are fans of the original characters from the movie too, because they're famous. So in a way, they're the characters are really living out what the fans are feeling. Is like, look, these are my heroes. I look up to them. And that's what the characters are doing as well. So I thought that was a pretty interesting point that Oscar Isaac made. From there, they brought out the three actors that had not been on stage prior to this. Adam Driver, Domhnall, I think is how they pronounce it, Domhnall Gleeson, and Gwendolyn Christie. This was spectacular. They really kind of let loose with some information really quickly here, because they brought them out as their character names. Now, we all assumed that Gwendolyn Christie was playing Captain Phasm. We also all assumed that Adam Driver was playing Kylo Ren. So when they announced them, it was basically confirming what our suspicions were, that yes, they are playing these characters. But when they announced Domhnall Gleeson, they said who he's going to be playing, and his character in the film's name is General Hux, and they flashed up and on screen what his character will look like. Kind of an Imperial-looking guy. He has kind of black Imperial uniform on, although it looks like he has some kind of cloak or cape along with it. Looks pretty evil. Domhnall Gleeson actually made a point of saying that he plays a British character, and as we all know, a lot of the British actors in Star Wars played evil characters, so by default he is an evil character since he is British. Pretty funny. Adam Driver, I don't know. I don't know if he was stoned or drunk, or if he's just a naturally quiet guy on stage, but he had very little to say. He just kind of hung out there pretty quiet. Gwendolyn Christie, she seemed pretty charming and in awe almost of everything that is happening to her as an actress, even to the point of almost belittling her part in Game of Thrones. She knew she was in front of Star Wars fans, so she downplayed that and really played up the fact that she's a part of Star Wars now and is loving every minute of it. So that's exciting. It's exciting. They talked about how she's a female inside a stormtrooper costume, and they talked about how she feels about that, and she thinks that's a great part for her to play, a great part for women to, a role for a woman to play. So exciting, very, very uplifting talk all around. So then the big ones come. They bring out Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and what was rumored to happened. Harrison Ford came out. And Carrie Fisher comes out first, and she's her usual charming, goofy self. They ask her what it was like to kind of be a legend amongst this newer cast, and she's used this line before, but she said, everything's kind of the same. They just the older actors look melted. And she used the term force melted. So apparently, Carrie thinks that if you can use the force, you can melt people's faces. Maybe that's a little bit of Indiana Jones there, but who knows? She also mentioned that just like everyone else, they're kind of reliving the Star Wars saga through their kids, and she said that she had a little bit of trepidation that, oh my God, what if my child doesn't like the same Star Wars characters that I do? Am I going to end up hating my kid? So it's fun to see that these three actors have really kind of embraced who who they've played. They seem to be very proud of the actors the characters that they've played. I know in the past, I don't think. Well, Carrie Fisher's never really said anything bad about Star Wars. She's always kind of been poked fun at it. Mark Hamill, he's always been very gracious. He even comes out and says that he's never taken his role as Luke Skywalker for granted. He says that basically without the fans, they're nothing. And he does admit that the fans at this point probably know more about the movies than he does. His son is more of a Star Wars fan than he is, to the point where he's actually took one of those online quizzes and failed. But that's understandable. Mark Hamill played the character. That doesn't mean he has to be a diehard fan like everyone else. But the really surprising thing is when Harrison came out, and immediately you could tell that he was almost to the point of being overwhelmed by the reception that he got. You could tell that he was very proud. He seemed happy. There was a big grin on his face, which, as we all know, his history with Star Wars hasn't always been favorable. He when asked how he felt being back on the sets of Star Wars, he immediately said that he thought it should have felt ridiculous, but it didn't. It felt great, which was a pretty awesome thing for him to say, having been the actor that wanted his actor killed off, to hear him say that it felt great being back on the sets. And he actually says that I never thought it would come back to bless me rather than haunt me, which that's a big thing. So really another way of them driving home that this is something special that they're making, that everybody's fully on board and having a good time and really invested in what's going on with the making of these new movies. Once we had all three of the original cast members on stage, they brought that same chemistry with. They started joking around about some of their famous original lines from the movies, and to the point where Mark Hamill was even joking around about the fact that he found out that his love interest was his sister, and that Harrison actually, to the point where he apologizes to Mark Hamill for getting the girl, which was very cute. And it's nice to see that these actors still can recite the lines from the movies, even though obviously not don't have to be the diehard fans, but they know the lines. This Star Wars has become something bigger than them, where they can actually enjoy it outside of who they are, which I thought that was nice. So through all this, and I was, like I said, I was kind of following this on the computer, watching people tweeting and posting pictures of this, so I didn't really get to see the reel that they played until everything was said and done. But they did play that midway through. And from there, after the original cast was brought on stage and the entire principal cast was up there, JJ brought out, really kind of dropped the mic on everybody and said, "Hey, Hall H, who wants to go see a Star Wars concert? You're all invited. Everybody can come." I think his exact lines were something on the order of, "We only have room for all of you." And with that being said, Chris Hardwick was playing the careful parent and telling everybody that they need to be careful and act like adults, as 6,000 people or so left Hall H to go to a Star Wars symphony concert, with a special message from John Williams as they played the symphony played key tracks from the Star Wars soundtrack, which, I mean, I can only imagine that was like. The pictures are, an entire stadium full of people waving lightsabers along with the principal cast. So that had to be amazing for everybody involved. As it turns out, the person that did not probably enjoy this was the person who had Hall H booked after Lucasfilm, and that's poor old Kevin Smith. He's been known as kind of the king of Hall H. He always has his evenings with Kevin Smith there, and he was going to talk about his new movie, Yoga Hosers, and apparently he pretty much talked to an empty auditorium. So Kevin Smith, being a Star Wars fan, had to be bittersweet for him. The fact that Star Wars has been a big part of who he is, had to be exciting to see, all the fan reaction to this, but had to be a little bit disappointing for him to see all his entire captive audience just up and leave. So poor Kevin Smith. I think as this news story kind of hit the internet, I think JJ's getting a little bit of flack for this, for not for doing this to Kevin Smith, but all is fair in love and Star Wars, I guess, right? So, with that being said, let's talk about this reel, because this was 3 minutes of just, for any Star Wars fan, pretty much pure emotional bliss. We get, although we don't get any new actual footage, so much we do get in this reel is, although not giving away anything, it gives us so much. We get to see a lot more of Jakku, the desert planet. We get to see a lot more shots of the Millennium Falcon being built inside of it. We get to see more creatures, more practical effect creatures, a lot of people in costume. Key to that, we see Simon Pegg, who has been rumored to have been on set during filming, is rumored to be wanting to be a part of the movie. Now he's a J.J. Abrams guy. He's been in Star Trek, and he's also been very vocal about his dislike for the prequels. So, for me, who's a fan of the prequels, I was a little bit... I didn't want to see Simon Pegg in a Star Wars movie. I felt like he was too angry about the prequels and bringing a bad vibe. But as soon as he kind of popped up on screen in this reel, all of that kind of washed away, because it was just, you could tell he was very excited, very gracious to be a part of this. And also, you could tell that he was going to be a creature in this. So we probably will not see Simon Pegg's face on screen, but we'll know somewhere along the lines that he is playing some kind of creature in this. So, again, we see a lot of practical effects. We have Mark Hamill kind of introducing the video, saying how practical effects mixed with newer technology is kind of what the movie's going for. We see explosions. We see actual stormtroopers. We see Kylo Ren walking out of the Millennium Falcon, which I think is something interesting. We've never seen a bad guy, or a supposed bad guy, in the Millennium Falcon, or walking out of the Millennium Falcon. I mean, I guess we've seen a couple stormtroopers on it in Star Wars, but I don't know, this seems a little bit more monumental. A lot of behind the scenes workers, building effects, building sets. One of the reoccurring themes throughout this entire reel is, I don't think there's anybody in this that doesn't have a large smile on their face and is happy about what they're doing. So, that's again, bringing home the fact that they are creating something special for the fans, and that this is something that we should all be looking forward to. The amount of care and love that's going into this movie is something that we don't usually get from a blockbuster movie. Some of the rumors that we heard prior to this reel have been confirmed. We saw a few weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago, we saw that on a cup, a promotional item out of Mexico, that C-3PO is probably going to have a red arm. That's been confirmed. We see a shot of 3PO, and he sure does look like he has a arm that's been replaced with a maroon type arm, so his entire body is still golden except for this one arm, his left arm. We see glimpses that Admiral Akbar and Nien Nunb, or at least characters that are part of their race, are in this. We can only assume that this is Admiral Akbar and Nien Nunb, since they're the most famous of those two races, are in this. We see Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, or General Leia, or Queen Leia. We don't really know what her title's going to be in this, but we had seen sketches of what her costume was going to look like, and we've even seen supposed shots of Carrie Fisher in costume, which looks like just kind of a Polaroids of kind of outfit fittings, but she's in the trailer, and it looks like she's in that costume that we've been rumored to see. So another rumor that's been confirmed. We see Warwick Davis, which I think we knew that he was in this. He's obviously a Star Wars cast member that's kind of a good luck charm to the Star Wars movies, being in them since Return of the Jedi. But we see him not in costume, standing next to another small in stature alien. And to me, this is probably the weirdest alien I've seen in Star Wars. Any of the movies, really. Looks almost like a cartoon character, or folks, if you're familiar with the show from the 70s, H.R. Puffin stuff, he looks like a character from there. I was looking on the internet, and somebody pointed out that he looks like the dog from the original Battlestar Galactica show from the 70s and 80s. I believe the dog's name was Misfit. But if you search for the dog, you'll see kind of has the same type of eyes. The dog was kind of a mechanical robot type of dog on that show. And we see Kathleen Kennedy and JJ with big smiles on their face. Again, like I said, reoccurring thing throughout this entire show was how happy and grateful everybody is to work on this. One of the shots that stood out for me is seeing Anthony Daniels kind of standing on set again, and he has a sense of real wonderment on his face, which I thought was, here's a guy who's been a part of all 7 movies, and he's still kind of, at least from this shot, looks like he has a sense that this is a magical thing that he's a part of. So it was a great thing that they gave us at San Diego Comic-Con. Looks like we're probably not going to get much else in the way of a trailer until fall of some time. September we're supposed to get some toys, so I think that'll be the next push. I think Disney is having some kind of convention where some of the games will actually be kind of shown more, especially Disney Infinity and Battlefront. So looks like that is probably our big this has been our big shot of Force Awakens news for a while. I know JP and I talked about how we weren't going to talk about the movie, but this was such a huge event and such a great, wonderful thing that the Lucasfilm gave us, then it was hard for me not to talk about it. when it happens. So, folks, I'm sure if you're listening to me blather on about this, you've all watched this and all seen it. I don't know anybody who's had an opinion where I'm like, ugh, this was terrible. It really kind of, I think it lived up to expectations, lived beyond expectations, really. And this was, I would say, beyond just Star Wars, this was a pretty exciting Comic-Con this year. You know, we got to see other trailers, whether leaked or official. We got to see a Batman versus Superman trailer, which, although I'm always kind of hypercritical of the DC movies and not as big of a fan as most, I was impressed by it. It seems to, although not be as funny as a Marvel movie, it looks exciting. It looks like it's going to have it looks like it's going to be a worthy contender to Marvel's movies. We also saw a Deadpool trailer leak, which is probably a superhero movie that I think we desperately need. Somebody who's really poking fun of everything as a superhero. So that looks to be ridiculously fun. We also saw Suicide Squad, another DC movie leak. That trailer looks interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but I think fan reaction is pretty good. So, you know, a lot of exciting things going on at San Diego Comic-Con. So, kind of makes Star Wars stand out even more, because there was some stiff competition, and Star Wars, I think, still kind of came away as the clear winner of the convention. So, with that being said, I think I will leave you for now. Probably go watch the reel one more time. Until then, folks, I will talk to you soon, and as always, stay granular.
It was a blockbuster summer. Moving pictures got us through to September. They made a movie about me and you, and they made it half nude and half true. There was a blood-sucking summer. I spent half the time trying to get paid for my savior. Swishing through the city center, I did a couple favors for these guys that look like Tusken Raiders.